So what we're going to talk about today is partnerships. When business partners disagree, how to approach partnerships. So let's talk about how we were just talking about how today was a very contentious day.
Yeah, you had, before we hit record, she had asked us the question of like, what would you guys think about diving into showing the parts of like partnership and business that people don't often talk about in relation to a disagreement or anything like that? And we laughed and said that felt a little too raw and real because that was our morning. And while it doesn't happen often, it happens sometimes. And it
Yeah.
just so happened to happen this morning. So that felt
Felt
perfect.
fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through kind of like what happened, what this looks like,
Okay.
how you guys worked through it. Let's just get all the juicy details.
Yeah. Well, to start, really, we always use the rule of announcing if it's business you talking or friend you talking,
Mhm.
because we are also really good friends.
Mhm.
And we learned that maybe like the hard way the first argument we had. We were taking like offense to each other what we were saying. And so we learned that we needed to say, okay, as your friend, I'm saying this. As your business partner, I'm saying this. And like announcing which part of us is talking, because there are things that like she will say that I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that from a business perspective. That's fine. But if you say that to me as my friend, I'm like,
Yeah.
excuse me. So I feel like the announcing of that
Which
was
that
come a
is
long way.
yeah, and it's hard sometimes because you get so close with someone when
Mhm.
you're working together every single day, and even after work you're communicating, and then like
Mhm.
we have kids the same age and we have similar friends. Like we are very intertwined ever since we
Yes.
started the business
And
together.
it's our shoulders at our desk are connected.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
us in here. Like we are together more than we are at home.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so it's just natural that an argument is going to arise or frustration
Yeah.
or whatnot. So this latest one was more so we used to have another team member, and now we are, she has moved on to a different job, which we're super happy for her. And it was
Yes.
a great move for her. So we were cheering her on.
Yes.
However, now her workload is being dispersed to us, which just is a recipe for resentment and disaster
Yeah.
because it's gray area.
And
It
it's
doesn't
busy
really
season.
fall.
Yeah, we're picking up on like our
Yes.
busiest season.
And it doesn't
of
really
the
fall
year.
on anyone. But it feels like that, like, how are we going to do this? Who's taking what?
Mhm.
How are we distributing this?
Mhm.
Who, like, I was saying that I was feeling like at my max. And I was just like, we are just at the cusp of busy season. I'm at my max and I'm feeling like I'm screaming for some help and
Mhm.
I'm like feeling like I'm being ignored, which after talking it out, that's,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't the case, but that's how the conversation started.
Yeah.
The conversation started more so like based off emotion,
Mhm.
and it evolved, but it really started based off of emotion of this is how you're making me feel. This is how you're making me feel.
Yeah.
And it gets muddy because we are friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think like one of the things that we've learned for sure over almost 4 years,
mhm.
3.5 years, is like just that we are different people.
Yeah.
Like Lauren is a very, very, and part of why it works is because of that.
Yeah.
Because Lauren is very task oriented, deadline oriented. She will get her shit done no matter what the instance. And I'm a little bit more of like a creatively
Mhm.
driven person. So sometimes that's hard because I feel like she's so good about like keeping us on task and making sure that like we're thinking through all of these things where I'm like, I can't even get my head there right now because I'm working on something that in my mind is more of a priority. So I feel like just learning to
Yeah.
balance each other's like sensitivities and the things that are really like important or
Right.
are triggers for each other.
One, I think it's great that we both have like different aspects to each other that shines. I think that helps because
Totally.
creative wise, I mean, I can't,
Man.
I can't do those things. Like I'll give it my best go, but they're not looking pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we need that. What gets tricky though is because she doesn't live in my brain and my world,
Right.
and I don't live in hers.
Right.
The way that we prioritize things is different,
Yeah.
and it just sometimes builds to a frustration of like, but
Yeah.
why aren't you seeing this?
Right.
Like, am I the only one seeing
Absolutely.
this? Am I going crazy?
Right.
Yes. So
Right.
practically, I think this is a really common problem that almost any business owner, whether they're a solopreneur or whether they have a partnership or whether it's in a larger organization, you're going to have competing priorities. You're going to have
Mhm.
like these things. I was just in a meeting earlier that was like, okay, now we need to get these creatives done, but we also need to do this. So this
Mhm.
changes
Yes.
this priority. And
Yes.
Yes.
unless you're having those clear conversations to say, like, this actually has to be the priority,
Right.
Hmm.
because if this isn't done, then this thing can't happen and
Exactly.
this
It's a
can't happen.
trickle down. Yep.
So, how do you guys practically come to those conversations to
Mm.
realize, like, okay, while this is my number one priority
Yeah.
as the creative, or while this is my number one priority as the like
Yeah.
go getter, like getting things done,
Right.
how do you bring those together and really like get the whole team, whether it's 2 of you or whether it's your own mind as a solopreneur,
Hmm.
to say, like, what is the actual priority? Like, what is the
Hmm.
next right thing that we have to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're being honest, we struggle with that all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have a clear answer because sometimes one thing works and the next it doesn't.
Mhm.
Um, and that's, I think, where it boils down to is we have to keep the train moving.
Yeah.
What is the next step to keep the train moving, whether it's what we thought it was or not? Where are we going? We got to keep up and keep on the next train car. So obviously we are always saying like we just need to communicate it better. We just
Yeah.
need to communicate it better, which is easier said than done because there's 7 million things going
Right.
on. And we've tried all the like calendars and the this and the that,
All of them.
but it's just another job.
It's
Like
another
for
thing to
us, we're
manage
like,
at the end of
that's
the day.
another thing to
Yeah.
take care of and update and add. And we don't have the time or capacity for it.
Mhm.
So work in progress. We are,
I want to pause on that because I think that's such an important thing. We just recently released an episode that was like 5 books that I think every female entrepreneur needs to have on their shelf.
Ooh, I
And
need
one
to
I was
of
listen to
going to say, send us the
them,
that.
list.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of them it's called The Plan by Kendra Adachi, and she says that 93% of time management books are written by men,
Oh, I could
and
see that.
like women just process things so much differently. But I think entrepreneurs also have like so many different things on their life.
Yes.
So the whole point of it is that like everybody struggles with these systems. And in the
1000%.
podcast, I said, I was like, I'm crying through this time management book because I'm feeling so seen. And like I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
sure you're probably thinking, why did you cry? And I was also thinking the same thing to myself, like, why am I crying? But it was
I can relate though. I feel like
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're like, "Oh, I'm not alone in this." It's like
yes.
such a validating feeling
And I
because
think,
it's going to happen and it's a
yeah,
struggle. It's hard.
it is. And as women,
Yeah.
we want to do it all. We feel like we
Yep.
need to do it all. And we feel instantly like a failure if we're not doing it all.
Yep.
But at the same token,
It's
it's
impossible.
impossible. And we
Yeah.
had somebody on our podcast who actually gave us good perspective who said that there's no such thing as work life balance, it's work life harmony.
Mhm.
And we were like, thanks for saying that
Yeah.
because it feels like all we're trying to do is balance it and give everything equal. But some days this gets more attention and some days this does.
Yeah.
And like, whatever the day is, how you balance it is what needs to be done. And it doesn't need to be like, it needs to be harmonious, not
Right.
balanced.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's really important for entrepreneurs listening to hear like it's not like you're going to find this magical system that's then going to
Yeah.
solve all the problems and you're just going to be sailing through life and just like drinking lattes and just being so happy with
Oh my God,
Exactly.
everything
that
that's
sounds
happening.
lovely.
Yeah.
So I think the
As our
other thing
cold
is,
pumpkin spice latte sits
Yeah.
down here
Our
that we
cold coffees
barely
that
got
we
to take a
barely
sip
had a
of.
sip of
yes,
yet.
yes. So for us, it's like, okay, we find these systems that work and they work for like 2 weeks and
Hmm.
then something breaks or like something new gets added to the plate.
Yep.
And it's so easy to be like, I don't need systems because they never work. And
Yeah.
so I think this conversation to say like, it's always a work in process and
Yes.
it's okay to pivot. It's okay
Hmm.
to say like, this worked last time and it didn't work
Yep.
this time. Why did it work? Why didn't it work? So
Mhm.
one of the other things that you said that I think is really interesting to just point out is that you had this change in your organization with like
Hmm.
you were down a team member,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that was the catalyst for the conflict. I think
Yeah.
so many times it's so easy for us to just be like, "This conflict came out of nowhere," like, and
Yeah.
not recognize, like, okay, when you're going into a season of change, whether that's good change, bad change, whatever that
Yeah.
is, whether it's we just added, like, 5 new people to the team, or,
Mhm.
we're down a person, or we just got this huge partnership,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, that change is almost always a catalyst for conflict.
Yeah.
So, is there any other time that you feel like that maybe that has resulted in some conflict, or when you've been able to step back and be like, "Okay, looking ahead, we know these changes
Mhm.
are coming," and, like, gotten ahead of potential
Mhm.
conflict?
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like you said, it's anytime we have a shift in like whose work responsibility is going to be what, whether it's adding a team member, taking away a team member,
Mhm.
that is always a shift. But also, we used to work out of Elizabeth's shed at her house.
Mhm.
And moving to Rise was obviously a positive thing. We got to move into an office, but that was a shift, figuring out
Yeah.
who was going to be on the office when, how what time do we arrive and go home, what time, who's doing what here.
Even down to,
It's a
like,
positive
who's
change, but
cleaning the toilet and who's taking the trash out,
right,
like, that I
that
mean,
was
because
an
it's a
argument,
very real, like, thing that you have
Yeah.
to
right?
work through.
Because it's no one's
Which,
job, but
by
it's
the
everyone's
way,
job.
Yeah.
for everybody that's listening, check out our Rise socials. We're posting pictures of your adorable shed, like your little she
Oh.
said. So it's so cute. And I think it's just such a testament that, like, this is a sidebar here, but that you can have really fun growth.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, everything was so embarrassing at my house. I just like worked out the card
Yeah.
table, and like,
Yeah.
you can have fun growth that's like super fun to celebrate all the way.
oh,
Yeah.
So
and
go
we
check
loved
those
it,
out.
honest to God. We cried when we left the shed. Like, all
It's
we
a very
wanted was an
sentimental
office.
place for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was all we ever wanted was an office, but we also cried and we're like, "Are we sure?" We
Mhm.
just outgrew it, there's no way we could stay there, but it felt like the end of an era and that everything was about to change,
Yeah.
and that was really hard
Yeah.
because that was, like, our comfort zone.
We actually just this week talked about, potentially transforming it into a little podcast studio because we have a podcast of our own, and we were like, "That would be fun because it's, like, where everything
Yeah,
started, and it's, like,
it's
Yes.
meaningful to
yeah,
us to be,
yeah,
like, back there.
yeah.
Although we
Yes.
went
That
back
would be,
My kids took it over, though, and
yeah,
it's
we went back
filthy
the other
right
day and
now,
we're like,
but
"What did they do to this place?"
we're kicking them out. We're
Yeah,
kicking
they're
them
out.
back
We're back
out.
in.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were talking about even during that time of moving to Rise, I totally interrupted you, but I think it
Oh,
was
no, that's
a
okay.
worthy sidebar because I
Yeah.
think it's just adorable. Um, so during that time, there was a lot of potential for conflict. You guys were trying to figure out who's cleaning the bathrooms, who's at the store at what times, like what does that look like? What would you say you guys did really well to kind of get ahead of that conflict? And what would you say to somebody that's like going into that season that you wish you would have done differently?
Mhm. I think before we moved in here, we actually, like, wrote out some of our systems in Canva, like step 1, step 2,
Yeah,
and we hung them in here, and then as we started to work in here, we tweaked them based on, like, "'Kay, that's not gonna work now that we have this space," but it was nice to have, like, a guideline
right.
of, like, what should it look like, and then tweaking based on the guideline,
Mhm.
and, we have, like, pickup hours, so we had to adjust who's gonna be the one grabbing the pickup orders, who's gonna be the one
Yeah,
in the back packing orders, and I do think that for that in that aspect,
yeah.
we kinda talked that through and, like, wrote it out, so we had a visual.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like the more you can make things process oriented, the better. But I also think that processes don't always work how you think they're going to before you actually apply them.
Yeah,
So having the flexibility to pivot things in the moment when you realize that what you thought
isn't gonna
isn't going
be.
to work out how you thought it was.
That's totally
Yeah,
And
and
that's truly just the story of our entire business. Like we're all like we say the word pivot like every freaking day because it's
yeah,
like that's just the nature of it. And if you can't adapt
to change
to change, I mean, we're in retail, so like change is literally happening every
daily.
single day. And when we think we have something figured out, it changes. And like our business is built on customer behavior,
Mhm.
and there are so many things that are like completely out of our control. So
Yeah,
being able
that's
to adapt is just,
adapt
whether it
and
be
be
internally or
understanding.
externally, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause that's part of what we talked about this morning is, I do all of the, like, buying and logging the budgeting and in all like, working with vendor side, and she does a lot of the marketing and
Yeah.
creative, and we were having a conversation of something that was bothering me, and I was saying, "It doesn't bother you because it doesn't affect you,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I'm on my own island right now with
Right.
0 help, and it's affecting me, and I understand why you're not seeing it, but
Yeah.
here's why it's affecting me directly."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that, like, that piece is hard too when you're
Yeah.
playing many different roles, many different hats.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think overall what I'm hearing about all of the like the even the transition from the shed to rise and then like even through this change is just overall communication. Like I think it's
Mhm.
important to understand that like documenting processes is communication. You're
Right.
Yes.
communicating what
Right.
that process is.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so it's one of those pieces of work that feels like it's a redundancy or
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
I know what I'm doing. Why am I writing this down? Why am I doing
Yep.
but it's actually a communication piece
That's
that
very
is
Yeah.
true.
it
Mhm.
gives you that groundwork to say like, okay, this is how we're doing it now. This is we're communicating the process. If we
Yeah.
need to change that communication, we can change that communication.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like it goes back to that whole communication piece, whether it's having the actual conversation that's
Yep.
like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I know this doesn't affect you, but this does affect me," or if it's
Yeah.
communicating visually
Yeah.
through
Right.
cues like, "This is the process." So I think that's
Totally.
really important.
I
I
think
think
too, like
yeah.
learning, like something that I'm working on personally right now is like just really recognizing that not everybody communicates the same way,
Mhm.
and like every personality is not the same as yours, and like people that you're managing, or even like in like friendships and stuff,
Totally.
like trying to just really understand how the other person receives communication and also gives it. Because
Mhm.
I actually came across this guy. His name's Ryan Leake. He's like a really awesome like motivational speaker and stuff. And he wrote a book about like working with complicated people, but like the complicated people is everyone, like including us. And it's like all about getting to the root of like who that person is and how you respond to them. And that might be different if that person's personality is completely different from someone else, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just like
Yeah.
from a management standpoint, really trying to take a step back. And that has been really interesting to me. So I've been reading that and I really, really like it. But I was kind of an aha moment for me because I'm like, I mean, even between like my husband and I, like
Yeah.
he is a different communicator than I am. And sometimes we butt heads because we just aren't the same person. And that's okay,
We very much
Yeah.
are not.
Yeah.
I am the type of person that if a problem arises, I want to talk about it right then and there. I want to get it off
Hmm.
the table. I want to get it off my plate. I want to just work it out.
Yeah.
Whereas Elizabeth is very much a let's sleep on it and talk about it tomorrow. And
You
I
got to process it a little
can't
bit.
do that because I'm like, why would we be putting it off? Let's just get it off our plate. That's another day of worrying
Yeah.
about it. So we have had to learn to give give and take a little
Yeah.
bit there of
Yep.
sometimes accepting, okay, all right, it might not want to wait till tomorrow, but I'm going to wait, or
Yeah.
forcing Elizabeth to talk about it in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's obviously an ongoing, always
Yeah.
a hard thing to do
Yeah.
because
We balance
I,
each other with that a little
yeah,
bit.
and I acknowledge that because I like to talk about things right away, it comes up as very blunt and very like bold and and in my
Hmm.
mind, I'm like, no, no, I'm just don't want to avoid it. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather
Yeah.
not, I'd rather just get it on the air.
Hmm.
But it's just like you
Yeah.
said, different ways of
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah, and I think going back to something you guys said earlier, which is different people every obviously there's no two people that are the exact same, but
Hmm.
even especially I think in business, whether it's a partnership or whether it's you have a whole team,
Right.
what makes those working relationships so impactful are the
Hmm.
differences that you bring to the
Yes.
table
Yes,
because it's
Yes.
like, okay, I can see your blind spot, you can see my blind spot.
totally.
Yes.
I can acknowledge that like you actually are better in this area
Oh,
than
yeah.
I
Totally.
am. So
Totally.
It's like a double edged
I
sword, though.
Hmm.
it's it is. And so here's something that I'm curious about is for entrepreneurs in general, how would you say the partnership in entrepreneurship has impacted like your spouse relationship or like even like your sibling relationships or friend
Mhm.
relationships because as
Mhm.
like you said, you guys are together probably
Yeah.
as much as or if not more as you are with most of your other relationships.
Yes.
How do you feel like that's impacted how you interact with or how you view those other relationships in your life?
The first thing that comes to mind, I feel like I could bring up so many
Oh my
things
God,
right
same. That's why I laughed because I
now.
was like,
But I will say I feel like uh, being an entrepreneur myself has given me a level of empathy for my husband that I didn't understand until I started this business because he is also an entrepreneur and he's owned a business for like over 10 years now. And there are so many things that, like, I now in hindsight kind of look back and think to myself, like, oh, I get it now. Like things that when our kids were really tiny and I would get super resentful about, or I just like didn't understand why he had to do this thing or why there was this conflict that was like stressing him out so much. And I was just like, leave it there, leave it at the door, like things like that, where I'm
mhm,
like, I think that, like, it's almost kind of strengthened our relationship in the sense that, like, I just kind of understand it now, and that's, like, a positive thing. Now, from the standpoint of, like, all of my time being in this, that is hard. I mean, that is hard, and I mean, we have mom guilt is such a real thing. Um, I feel like that is something that we're, like, always kind of trying to, like, talk each other through where, we don't wanna miss our kids' childhoods, and we don't wanna miss bus drop off
Yeah.
and, all of these things, but it is again, there is no such thing as a perfect balance.
yeah. I think it's about setting rules for yourself and what you
Yeah.
want to do. Like my rule is I'm not going to miss a sporting event and I'm not going to miss
Mhm.
putting my kid on the bus or picking them up off the bus. That's just like where I've hung my hat and it's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth's maybe different and
Yeah.
we respect what each of our boundaries are and accommodate in that manner
Mhm.
based on what our limit is to what we're going to miss and not. But I think what also the misconception we have had to struggle with is because our business is very much online and on Instagram and talking to the camera and whatnot, people, whether it be friends, family, randoms, anyone, thinks that they know what we're doing all day, every day.
Yeah.
And we have got to say, like, first of all, sometimes things are pre recorded. Second of all, you see about 2% of the day.
Right.
I know that it appears like you're seeing our entire day, but like you're definitely not. Just
Mhm.
rest assured of that. So that's been hard sometimes in certain
Yeah.
situations to say, what are you even talking about? Like, that's not what we
Yes.
were doing all day.
Yes. Yes.
But I can see from their point of view, that's
Yeah.
all they saw.
Yeah.
So what's right in front of you is what you think.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a really common social media
Yeah.
like misconception that it's like people that are posting vacation photos, people assume they
Hmm.
have just like this vacation lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
Or people that are posting fun, smiling pictures with their kids assume that their kids are always perfectly well behaved and,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, date
Yeah.
nights with your spouse. It's like, oh, their marriage must be perfect. And it's like,
Yes.
no, this
Like,
is
if you only
this is
knew
not
Yeah.
reality.
The
yeah.
you
highlight
know?
reel.
Yeah, if you knew
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were fighting on the way in the car here because the babysitter didn't get here on
Right.
time and this and that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
peachy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love
Yeah.
that. So, okay, well, let's see. So we're at about like 25 minutes recording.
Okay.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel like we really should like dive into or that you feel like is important about your story as partners or just as a business or anything like that?
I don't know. As partners, I would say that it's tricky to be partners
But it's also
with a friend, but it's
awesome.
also, yeah, like people love
Yeah.
to talk down on that, being like, don't go into business with friends. And, I see that side of it. But at the same token, it's really awesome because we ultimately know in the end that we're going to have each other's backs.
Yeah.
And however we get to that point, that's going to be the end
Mhm.
point is we are always going to have each other's back. And we're ultimately, that's how it's going to end
Right.
and that we will figure it out. We have that
Yeah.
mindset of like,
Yeah.
well, okay, on to the next. We're going to figure
Okay,
it out.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you
Yeah.
along those lines. Okay, so thinking through this whole like friendship over business approach that you guys have set up in your working relationship, has
Yeah.
there ever been a time where each of you or either of you had this thought that was like, I need to prioritize our friendship over the business, and this is a really big sticking point for me?
Yeah.
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I can say that. I can't speak for Elizabeth, but for me, yes. And more so, it's coming from a place of like, I don't want to be too bullheaded on the business side because it could ruin the friendship when really, if I wasn't friends with this person, here's how I may have reacted or said. But because we're friends, I need to think it through more so. And there's always that like blip in your mind that goes through like, okay, would it be easier to just take myself out of this for a second instead of ruining it all? We always do come to a resolution
Yeah.
on that, but there have been waves where it has, when you're in the thick of it, it feels so hard,
Yeah.
has crossed my mind. Now, ultimately, whenever we think about it with a logical brain, it's always like, okay, that doesn't need to happen. We can figure it out.
Yeah.
But there have been moments that it's, flashed through your mind or whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that like ultimately, I mean, I think like entrepreneurship can be like really lonely if you're doing it alone. So I think like uh, having another person doing it with you
Hmm.
obviously can be really challenging because you have another person's mind that is
Yeah.
like
It's
part
not
of
just your
it.
own and your own decision.
Yeah, but I feel like at the end of the day,
I'm
it's
grateful for
always,
that.
yeah, like it's always like, yes, we can
Hmm.
disagree and be like, God, this is hard. But
Hmm.
like at the end of the day, I don't know. That's just so much more of a priority. Like our relationship is just so
Yeah.
much more of like a priority than like
Hmm.
anything going on at work. Like when you take a step back, it's like that's so trivial compared to like our friendship, you know? So I feel like,
Yeah. Prime example was this morning. We were like just
yeah.
going back and forth, not like hearing each other. And then I like stepped away and sat there. And I am not an emotions person. Honestly, I'm really not. I wish I was more, but I could
You
feel
wish you were
myself just
more.
like having a breakdown and getting ready to start crying. And a few minutes later, Elizabeth walked over and then we were sitting like side by side and just started talking like friends. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, we realized in that moment, like, we gotta step back out of this for a
Yeah.
second and figure it out. And
Yeah.
we have to step away from it for a
Yeah.
second and go into friend mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm hearing that is so important for entrepreneurs to understand is like when you're in the thick of things, it seems like this is such a big deal. It
Yeah.
seems
Totally.
like this is a make or break. This
Seems
is
earth
going
shattering.
Yes.
to, yes, this is going to just totally derail everything that we've been working so hard for
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
everything that we've stood
Yeah.
for. And I don't know that I can do this. And what I'm hearing is like, if you can just give yourself a minute and you
Yes.
can take a step back and remember, why did we go into business together? Why are we
Mhm.
friends? Why are we doing this? What is our vision? What is our mission? And
Yeah.
get back to kind of your why,
Yeah.
then it can kind of put everything into perspective.
Totally.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's genuinely when I feel like we start to crumble, is when one of us feels like we've lost why we got into it
Yeah.
or why we enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we usually can bring each other back to and say, okay, well, if that's the thing that's making you feel like we're losing the why, how do we fix that?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that that's really cool that we can do that. Obviously, everybody in every business communicates and does things differently. Everybody might not be like us, where you're going to go
Yeah.
cry in the corner for a second. But I do think that it comes down to the different ways we deal with things in our personalities. And like, I need Elizabeth,
Yeah.
as I assume, she needs me. But also,
Yes. For sure.
if we didn't have the balance, we'd probably butt heads more than we do.
And just
Which,
Absolutely.
listening,
yeah, which
like,
really we don't argue that much. Comes around
yeah.
maybe like twice a year where somebody has a breakdown and it's
Yep.
comes to a head
Yep.
and then it's resolved. But
Yep. Yeah. I feel
I
like,
think that's another really important piece is like sometimes it's like if this doesn't ever happen, then when it does happen, it seems like there's a reason why it's happening and
yeah,
like there's
well, and
something
it
really
feels so
wrong.
big and like scary and
Yeah.
like, like, oh my God. But like, yeah, like you said, it's like at the end of the day, slow down, listen to each other
and figure
and
out how you're going to
figure
keep
out a
moving the train.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, ladies, for your
Thank
transparency.
you.
How can our listeners connect with you? How can they learn more? I know you have a podcast.
Awesome.
Tell us
Yeah.
all the things.
Our website is cocotheshop.com, COCOtheshop.com. That is where we launch new products on Tuesdays. Our products are elevated but classic, and we keep everything under $100. So it's also very affordable without sacrificing quality. On Instagram, we are Coco_the Shop. And then we do have our own podcast as well, where we basically just talk about life, motherhood,
It's chaotic just as we
fashion,
are.
funny, all
Yeah.
the things. It's called Unbuttoned, and it is on Apple and Spotify.
Yeah, and you can watch it as well on YouTube,
Yeah.
Unbuttoned Podcast. Yeah, so check us
Yeah.
out. And
It was so fun chatting with you.
Yeah.
This is like, I love talking about this stuff because it
Same.
is the stuff that like people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, and you caught us on a good
yeah.
day for that.
Yeah, you really
Yeah.
did.
It just worked out.
It worked
It worked
Kind of weird
out.
how
It
that
was meant to
happened.
be.
Yeah. Yeah, it
All
was
right.
meant to be.
Thank you
but
so much, ladies.
Thank
you.